All right, welcome to the unofficial Maple Leafs post-game breakdown. Leafs get a win 2-1 over Philly in overtime last night. Hell of a game. Kind of thought it was one of those games that the Leafs were just going to kind of let go by and just be like, we didn't have it tonight. But surprisingly, they dug deep. Scott Lawton comes back in his original, I don't say his hometown, but the team that he played for before. Gets a huge goal, ties it up 1-1, and then it goes to overtime. Leafs managed to pull out a win somehow in the OT, thanks to Cowan and Hildeby for sure. I guess one major point in this game, real quick, is the fact like that overtime was one of the worst overtimes I've ever seen. I've never seen the Leafs be so sloppy in overtime. I don't know if they were just surprised to be there or what, but I mean they just looked tired. They had really no communication whatsoever. Guys running into each other. No one knows who's going to take the puck in the zone. It was pretty awful, to be honest with you. Zegras gets that breakaway, and I really thought it was over from there. You thought I was going to see some crazy deke or some highlight clip that we'd see for 30 years or something, but no, he just kind of tried to go 5-hole. Hildeby stops it. Cowan then gets that breakaway. And yeah, unfortunately, Cowan doesn't bury it. But then you know what? He hustles back. There's a 2-on-1 there with Riley. That gets saved by Hildeby as well. And then, credit to Mo there. I really thought it was over when I saw Riley in the middle of that 2-on-1. But then he dives across the net, saves it. At least just gets in the way anyway, so there's not an open net there. And then Tavares and Cowan go down and finish it off. So pretty impressed that this team actually just got it done. It's one of those games that typically I hate to call it a scheduled loss, but it's one that you just wouldn't think the Leafs, when they were down for the majority of that game, like you just think they're going to let it slide, especially with a 5-on-3. I thought if Philly scores on that, you're down 2-0. Game's kind of going nowhere. There's no real energy, So it just makes me think this team is really bought in. Like it's actually in such a different place than it was even like a month ago at this point. It's like two different teams, honestly, like from 2025 to 2026 now. It's incredible. I guess these guys have really bought in to the system and they're just I guess they're just trying harder, but at the same time, it's so much easier to try harder when you get a couple wins. When you start rolling, especially on a hockey team, it's so much easier. Everything is just better. It doesn't really matter how you play, like it does, but when you're winning, it's just like it doesn't matter because we won. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of positives for this team right now, and definitely need it because the way the schedule works out, there's so much hockey between now and the Olympics. The Leafs play basically every other day, a couple back to backs here and there. So it's going to be just a slog to the Olympics at this point. And with that being said, with the Olympics, I'm curious to see how it will work out for this team. Like, let's assume for a second that the Leafs are going to be, pretty much doing the same thing until then. They're in a pretty good spot. They're just outside the playoff berth as it is right now. So definitely dug themselves out of a hole. But let's say they get to the Olympic break. Like, I wonder if it's going to hurt them or help them at this point. I tend to think that in a season like this, when it's so compact and there's been so many injuries, you get that Olympic break and it's going to make a huge difference for a lot of guys. It's the classic conversation of like rest versus rust. But I think in this case, the rest is going to help his team just immensely because guys like John Tavares right now, when I'm watching, they just seems to be a step behind the play pretty much every night now. He's still making some good touches and some good passes, but he just doesn't have the energy that he used to have, like before the Christmas break, even to just kind of be ahead of the play and just make a little bit more aggression, I guess. So he's getting older. We always kind of knew when he was getting to this part of his career that he's going to slow down a little bit. And I think he has slowed down a little bit, but it's just because of the schedule. I still think, you give him some rest, he'll bounce back pretty good. He usually does. But in times like this, there's a lot of injuries right now, but why not throw John Tavares in like the press box for a little bit? Give him some rest. You got Nylander out right now. Hopefully he comes back in a little bit. I know he's on injured reserve, but it's not going to be that long, I don't think. But yeah, like, give him a rest, give him a game or two up there, just kind of heal the body up a little bit, the mind, just, if there's points in this season, obviously, when Cowan has had to sit and watch a game, partly because he's young, I get it. But it's like, why not just, you know, why not take John out for a little bit, rest him up? I think that's be a wise decision at this point. So yeah, I don't know. Um, Cowan for me has come so far in this season. It's actually been unbelievable. He seems to be growing and just getting better and better every game, especially when he's playing with Robertson now. Those two are just connecting all the time, every game. They just have a lot of they're fighting for pucks. They got a will on the ice where you can see like they're trying so hard. It's just so nice to see, from that fan perspective of just like you just a lot of times you feel like guys are not playing to their full potential, and guys like Cowan and Robertson seem to be exceeding their potential or what we thought that they would be at this point. It was going to be a mediocre season. Robertson wasn't really supposed to be here or wanted to trade, and now it seems like they've kind of captured lightning in a bottle for the most part. So it's hopeful for now. I hope they can keep that up and they keep the line together. Um, Especially, yeah, one more thing on Cowan too is, especially in the big moments, like typically earlier in this season, we wouldn't usually see Cowan be in like an overtime scenario, but now it seems like Berube is going to him more and more often. Even though he's young, he's putting him in higher pressure situations, and he seems to be able to handle that pressure pretty good. It's actually pretty impressive. So obviously he's growing every game now, but I still think the ceiling is so high on where he can go. As long as they don't screw up his development in some way or trade him, like he was almost traded too, like that's crazy. So the Leafs have, found some magic here. And like even when Nyes was coming up, Nyes is like a basically a star now. Cowan has a good future. So even though the cupboards are pretty bare in terms of the assets that this team has, they seem to have gotten pretty lucky and pretty just pretty fortunate with the guy that they have had left to turn out to be really good players. So yeah, I'm excited for the future of how that's going to look for Maple Leafs hockey. Anyways, Hildeby and Wall quick. I'll do this quick and then I'll end it. But yeah, so happy to see Hildeby started last night. I like Wall. I think he's been good, but I think he's been slightly overworked in the last little while. Obviously he's been kind of injury prone over the last little bit, as we've seen a couple seasons. There's been some weak injuries here and there. I wouldn't have thought I would have ever said that I wanted to play Hildeby over Wall, but it just seems like Hildeby has a lot more confidence this season. And when it comes to how well the team plays in front of either goaltender, it's pretty much the same right now. But I think when Hildeby's in net, he's so big. He does have a height and a size advantage over Wall that when he's in there, it just seems like there's really not much room for that puck to go in. He's just so big. Like he's 6'7", and there's no room. Like it's even when Zegras tries to go on that breakaway and go 5-hole, he just there's not a lot of room there. So I want to see Hildeby kind of run with it for a little bit. With the schedule, obviously they have to go back and forth as it is, but I just want to see Hildeby get some more time in here because I think he needs it. And I think, you kind of go with a tandem right now. It's going to make a big difference in the longevity of these goaltenders, especially if Stolarz ever comes back too. Then you got 3 great goaltenders. So I think it'll make a huge difference to see that. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. And Leafs get Vancouver tomorrow. That's going to be an interesting game. Hopefully they don't get trapped in that one either and can actually come out with some offense. So excited to see that. And hopefully I'll see you after that one. Weekend games, I don't mind doing a show after the game, but on a weeknight, sometimes the game starts later, it goes into OT. It's so difficult to just to come out here after and do a show because you got to wake up at before 6 a.m. in the morning. Doing that show after the Leaf game just kills you. So my bad. But yeah, anyways, Vancouver tomorrow, going to be interesting. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you then. Cheers.